Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 571, recorded live on Sunday, September 1st. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, coming back to the show, we've got Voodu,
Hey everyone.
also known as Ginger Spice. Welcome back. It's great to have you. This should be a fun show. We'll get into some of that stuff later, but first we'll talk about the screenshot of the week. Varanus explores the high rises of Sharn in the 429th screenshot of the week. It was a great shot.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like the sky.
Yeah, it's great coloring and placement.
Contrast.
Yeah. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can catch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, iTunes, or from our website at DDOcast.com. And also, we're hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network, and shows are usually available within a few days of recording. The next show will probably be next weekend. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages at DDOcast on Twitter is the best, or our website, DDOcast.com, with our calendar. On the podcast this week, we'll check in with the news and stuff. We're going to do, this is something we've been doing for a while. It's kind of our guide, as it were, to the Sharn raids. So we're going to do that today, and it should be a lot of fun. We've got Voodu here, High Lords of Malak here, do a lot of raids, in particular the teaching raids. You didn't do Sharn, right? Did you do Sharn in your teaching raids this year?
Too Hot to Handle was out before we finished, but I don't even know if we had gotten a completion in guild by the time we wrapped up our teaching raids. So
that's fair.
I'm gonna talk more about Too Hot to Handle with relation to teaching raids once we get there.
We're gonna talk a lot more about Too Hot to Handle in relation to a lot of things. But that's where we're going today. So we'll be talking about Too Hot to Handle today. If you're listening live, you'll also get Product Nemesis, and then we'll kind of roll those out. Probably be one show each. They're not horribly complicated raids. There's not a ton of stuff going. Well, there's a ton of stuff going on, but you can break it down pretty easily. So I don't think it'll take too many shows to do that. However, with that, we'll just kind of jump into game news, of which there basically isn't any. But we did get word this week that there are changes coming to the Adventure Compendium. And what do we mean by that? Well, so if you push P, the key is P, it brings up the list of adventures. You can check it. Usually we use this to check our favor, right? There's different tabs that show you challenges, wilderness areas, what your total favor is and stuff. It also, it shows you what you've completed and what levels they are. So what they're doing is they're actually breaking out the heroic and epic or legendary levels. So you will see, so right now it has a level column, and that is, it gives you the number for heroic and then a slash and the number on epic. They're breaking those into two different columns, so you can search for them based on which one you want to look for. Just fantastic.
Hell yeah, it is. About damn time.
Also, the compendium now remembers your last selected sorting order when reopened or zoning, and defaults to sort by heroic level. This is fantastic.
Yay.
This was a dev who I didn't even write his name down. I'm so sorry. Sick, I think it might have been. It was a new dev. I think this was like his first post. So far he's batting 1,000 on the dev posts. Well done, sir. Or ma'am. But yeah, so this will be really helpful, especially when you start to consider things like it is very helpful in the sense that you've got the new mechanic where you can be on heroic or epic and get first time XP bonus, right? It doesn't matter which one you run for. If you run heroic first, you can still run the epic. You get first time XP and everything. So yeah, so that's great, right?
Awesome changes. I mean, changes that people have been requesting for years.
Yeah, right.
So
it's great.
Better late than never.
And there you go. That's kind of the news. There's been some chatter from the devs, but nothing horribly extravagant or nothing. Apparently, there was a fire at Standing Stone Games, which I guess was more of a false alarm than an actual fire. So that's good. Yeah. Let's see. Bonus days. Double daily dice through the 2nd, because in the U.S. it is Labor Day tomorrow on Monday. So we do get the daily dice, double daily dice XP through Tuesday morning. And then store news, the sales for the week is Rise Again, so you get 25% off of reincarnation items, healing items, spell point potions, quest elixirs through September 5th. You can also get a coupon code for 5 long-lasting Bull's Might potions with coupon code Bull's Might now through September 5th. Actually, note to self, I should get those and put them on my monk on the hardcore server who has a strength of 9. He picks up full plate out of a chest, and he becomes so encumbered that he comes out of center. It's kind of annoying.
Well, that's no good.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of a problem. Also, double bonus points are back through September 8th. So if you've been waiting to get some points, now would be a good time to do it. All right. That'll bring us to community news. We're cruising today. It's always nice when you get a slow news day, right? Let's see. The 348th Chronicle. Grimoires posted about a blog and their experience in a hardcore server. Makar DDO invites players on Galana to raid Thursday and Sunday evening European time, so you can check that out. Comment. What is the most terrifying undead creature in DDO? This has a whole new meaning if you played on the hardcore server.
Yeah, so all of them on the hardcore server, right?
Doomsphere comes to mind.
I'm going to say anything that has a Vengeance Reaper buff on it.
I have not seen the Vengeance Reapers yet, so...
Oh, they're horrible. We just had one on live stream.
What do they do?
They when they die, they're spellcasters, I think, and they also put down these circles that like Strahd does, and they explode for negative energy. But when they die, any mobs in the vicinity, and it's a huge area of effect, get the Vengeance Reaper buff, and it's permanent, and it makes them like 10 times harder than they normally are. It's ridiculous.
It sounds like something that I was advocating for and suggesting.
So they really need to tighten up that AoE effect because it is just a little bit too big right now, and maybe time the buff instead of making it permanent.
Well, hopefully it's going to die pretty quick. Although, does that affect raid bosses too? Because that would be scary.
Yeah, see, we were just doing Reaper 5 Skull, what do you call it, with Militia at the end there, to curse the sky, and we had a Vengeance Reaper in the end fight that pretty much wiped us, but we were able to recover, but not without cheesing it. I was doing it on live stream too.
So it buffed the boss.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible.
When it buffs the bosses or like orange names, it's terrifying.
Oh boy. Yeah, that would be marginally terrifying. I must say. I don't know, the other one of the liches in Epic Orchard are pretty nasty.
Yeah, the Lich Lords, those things are so nasty.
Yeah, nasty. The guild for the week, Iron Phoenix Legion, is a guild that has recently been revived out of Orion, as the name implies. They have been, I think Iron Phoenix Legion. Look at that, and it seems like it should say the Orion Phoenix Legion. But anyways, we have risen again from the ashes of inactivity to become a bustling and helpful guild, open to players of all level experience. They are level 48 with our unique Stormglory Typhoon ship. I wonder what makes it unique. We'll be keeping things well stocked and look to bring revival to our server of Orion by growing its population and igniting the players within. Good luck, fellas. Let's see, fan site news. DDO Players News had an episode. Mickey's Delirium did raids week 137. We got a shout out for episode last week talking about hardcore with Samus Grobo. And let's see, Newbie Cabra and Brock and Friends are both playing hardcore. Baklagor with Fridays on Ice, Bard Life with Doug Landauer, Freedio with Psycho Blonde, Streaming with Even, and the DDOPL folks all had episodes this week. Also, Cordovan was streaming Hardcore League a bunch. And we got a shout out for D&D Night on DDO Stream, Heroes of Batterize, which was, that is Evil Beaker's group that I'm a player in. We're currently stuck in the Underdark trying to get out. So we're having a lot of fun there. Let's see. There was also a blog, BioBreak, this week. Talked about the tiniest taste of permadeath in DDO, stepping into the hardcore server, kind of testing it out. It didn't sound like he got very far before he died the first time.
Why, it was a tiny taste, I guess.
Yeah. Let's see. That kind of covers all that stuff. D&D night on DDO stream. Don't forget to check that out. Sundays at 7 p.m. Eastern time on twitch.tv/DDO stream. There will be an episode tonight if you're listening to this live. And D&D Kasplat, which is the one that I'm DMing, will be in next week, the second Sunday of the month. And currently slated, I have a special project that I've been working on slowly that will probably be airing on that programming on the last Sunday of September, which is the 29th, I believe. So that's been a lot of fun. DDO Kasplat, my static group with a bunch of folks who've been on the show a few times and been around playing on Kyber. We're continuing that. The Reaper changes have been a lot of fun with that because we've been running heroic quests on R3, getting great experience for it and enjoying the heck out of it. So there you go. And then I thought it'd be fun to do a quick hardcore check-in. Are you playing on the hardcore server?
I log in there every day to do my daily roll, but no.
I do that too. No, it's been fun. I have managed to get. I got to 1750 favor this weekend, so I got to claim that reward.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. I've been really enjoying that experience. I did get kind of roll this in with the we did have a comment last week saying that someone said that he thinks 3 strikes per life on hardcore would be perfect. That wouldn't really be hardcore. But I don't know. I don't know that I care. I think it's definitely fun to limit your death, right, to make that more of a terrifying thing. When was the last time you ran Keeper's Sanctuary? Probably been a while.
Before Reaper mode, I think, or maybe when Reaper mode first came out.
Sure.
So it's probably been 2.5 years. Because once Reaper mode came out, I parsed down the amount of quests that I was doing because we were getting so much XP.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I cut a whole bunch of them out of my routine.
So there's a spot in there where if you investigate this little area, it's a small little square, and one of our party members went in there, and he got trapped with a couple skeletons. And they knocked him down to incap, and he got back up, and they knocked him down to incap again, and he got back up, and they knocked him down again. And we're all like stuck outside because we can't do anything because he's trapped inside this force field. It was comically hilarious because it wasn't me who was in there, right? He got out. He survived amazingly.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. He went down, up, down. It was hilarious. He got out of there. He was like, "Holy crap!" But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I even found a couple people that I used to play with that moved on to different servers and found them over there. So playing with people from different servers has been a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. All right then. I think that means we get to kind of start talking about Too Hot to Handle. So this will be our DDOCast raid guide for Too Hot to Handle. We'll do Project Nemesis for next week's show. So Too Hot to Handle is the new-ish raid. It's the older of the 2 raids from Sharn that came out. I don't even remember. When did Sharn come out? April?
May?
I don't even remember anymore. Yeah, it would have been May, right? Came out in May. You do have to flag for it, which means you have to run all of the Sharn quests. You can do them on Heroic or Legendary. Either one is fine for flagging.
Well, not cogs, just the first 2 chains.
Yeah, just the chains. Thank you. That are there. The entrance area is actually in the cogs. You can port there. Once you complete the chain, it flags you for the guy who kind of teleports you on the cogs. He'll teleport you straight there. If you don't have that, you can port there with the Sharn boarding pass. It's one of the locations it will send you to, which can be helpful if you want to run the other raid, Project Nemesis, which does not require flagging, but you do have to get there. It's also a really short run, so it doesn't take too much to get there. So where should we start? Basic premise, perhaps. Basic mechanics of the raid. The Forge Wraiths are free. They're getting out of control, and you have to stop them. It's a fairly short raid. You will probably either succeed or fail within 20 minutes.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
There should almost just be a contest to see who can last the longest in the raid.
It's in the sense, it's abstractly like Hound of Zoriat in that sense. Like when everything goes well and smooth,
Yeah.
It's not a big deal, but it goes nuts and haywire sideways really quick.
Yes, it does. Perhaps a little too quick.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that. This raid is very challenging. It was intentionally very challenging. I would posit that it's too challenging.
I agree.
I am a strong proponent that a group of pugs on normal that generally knows the mechanics and can follow them should complete 80% of the time in a raid. This raid, that's not true. I think a really strong raiding guild, like High Lords or Lava Divers or Omnipresents, should be able to complete raids on Elite, or certainly hard. Generally speaking, Elite, if they're bringing not weak, I'll say weak, not like C level tunes out of their repertoires, right? So if everyone shows up and is on their A game, the raiding guild should be able to do these things should be able to do raids on Elite, if not R1, right? That's kind of where I stand. That's not the case with this raid. I think it is like riding the storm out. I think the amount of damage that you take from elemental stuff is prohibitively too high for newer players, and that's kind of where I really don't like. Although this one, it seems to be more fire is a big part of it, but I think the evil damage is kind of the stuff that really kicks you pretty hard. So, would you like to comment on the difficulty of the raid?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's an overbearingly difficult raid. I can understand a group of power gamers that are all running Uber DPS might think this raid is really easy, especially if you have certain roles locked down. But like my guild, we're still doing this raid on normal.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, I've only ever done this raid on normal, and and because of how challenging it is, I have no aspirations to do it beyond that. And even at this point, like my guild probably has a couple dozen completions. I don't know, but I was just having a conversation with one of my guildies the other day about how we love to raid. We raid every single night of the week, and this raid, I want to like it, but to me, I'm still at a point where it's like it's stressful.
Sure.
And I'm like, I don't want to go into a raid and be stressed out. Like we have 13 different difficulties. If maybe on any given night, if we don't have like the strongest crew, maybe we'll just do Strahd on legendary hard, right? And it'll be pretty easy for us, no big deal. We can kind of goof off, and if we have our better players there or better tunes or whatever, we would do like Strahd on R1. This raid, no, it's like we got to bring our best just to get it done on normal.
Yeah, and I think there is something to be said about a raid being challenging enough that we can grow into it a little bit. Like, I think Killing Time did a fair to middling job of that, of being something that we could kind of grow into challenge-wise. I think the Ravenloft raids were better at that. As our tactics got refined, we were able to kind of push that up. But we were also making those adjustments as we were getting higher in Reaper Skulls, right? So there's a lot of problems I have with the difficulty of this raid, and when we talk about more of the specifics, I'll kind of mention them where I think there's definitely room for improvement. I'm with you though. Like, I want to like this raid. I actually really kind of like the mechanics. I just think the damage numbers are just completely off base and way too high.
And let me also contextualize this, with respect to my guild and our experiences. Like, you mentioned earlier how we do the teaching raids. Like, we in winter and spring on Sarlona, we do teaching raids for like new players or people who are new to raiding or new to the game, and we take newbies into these raids. And like this last season, like when we did Strahd this last time, it was just me. It was 5 guildies and 7 first timers. We went to Strahd on normal, no problem. Like, my guildies and I, me and 4 of my guildies, we got it locked down. We understand the mechanics. We can take 7 newbies in there, show them how the raid works. It's not keep it nice, learning, non-stressful environment. We can do that. When we did Killing Time the last time as a teaching raid, we had 5 newbies in there.
Sure.
No problem on normal. I don't even see us I can't see us doing this as a teaching raid at all. I don't even see us being able.
At best, you'd have to. At best, you'd just have to film your own guild doing a completion.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't take newbies in here.
No.
We don't even, in guild we're completing 100% of the time when it's all 12 guildies. But if it's not all 12 guildies, we might be 50-50. And even when it's 12 guildies, like we did on Thursday night, like we had to try again. Like, we didn't succeed the first time. It took us 2 attempts to complete it. I can't take newbies in there, and that is upsetting to me. Like, I would like to be able to go into a raid on normal, take some newbies in there, show them how it works. I can't do that with Too Hot to Handle. Not even, now that we're this far into the raid and we have a couple dozen completions under our belt, I still have no idea. We can't. The same guild that can take 7 first timers into Strahd on normal and complete it with no problem, I can't take 2 newbies into Too Hot to Handle.
Sure. Yeah. No, I agree.
And that's awful. It's too hard on normal, and I think there's a real lack of appreciation on the part of some players and some of the devs about what the word normal means as it pertains to the difficulty in a video game like Dungeons and Dragons Online. Like I said, we have 13 difficulties. And you power gamers can have Reaper mode, Can you leave normal for the rest of us, maybe?
At least normal.
And like you said, I don't think pugs, like real pugs, like there are people claiming like, oh, we pug it out all the time and no problem. Like, I'm talking about true pugs, not like the same guys that are hitting your LFM and you're calling them pugs just because they're not in your guild. I don't think a true pug has much of a chance to do this.
Yeah, the difficulty is definitely prohibitive in that regards. Let's start talking about getting into the raid and in of itself. Things you're gonna want to bring: fire absorption. You're gonna take a lot of fire damage. That's one of the 2 primary damage types. The other is evil, which is a lot harder to deal with in terms of protecting yourself against it. There's a couple of items that have evil absorption, but if you can get some, that will help you a lot.
MRR will help you as well.
Yeah, high MRR is a big part of it. You can, if everything goes really well for you, you may not really even take much in the way of damage, but if things go sideways, they go sideways here really fast. The primary thing you're going to be fighting are Forge Wraiths. If you would like to play around with Forge Wraiths and kind of get used to them as a general mob, the Vaunt Security Office in the Cogs is a good place to go visit. There's a lot of them out there at the end. You can also just play with them in the general Cogs Explorer area. As far as I'm aware, their immunities and vulnerabilities are all the same in that regard. The difference in the raid is when with one of them when a Forge Wraith dies near another Forge Wraith, it will, one, heal that Forge Wraith that didn't die, and it will also upgrade it if possible. So a normal Forge Wraith will upgrade to an orange named Forge Wraith, and then upgrade into a red named Forge Wraith. The higher the step, the more hit points it has, the more damage it does, that kind of a thing. So that's kind of, and that right there, like, that is the main mechanic of this raid that you have to manage, is not upgrading those. If you get a group of 5 of these things together and you kill one and upgrade the other ones to orange, and then kill another one and upgrade the remaining ones to red, I mean, that's how you're going to fail this raid, generally speaking. Because as they upgrade, they get harder to deal with, they do more damage, and they're going to kill more people. So you really have to be careful of that. You'll also want spawn screen, because like many undead, the Forge Wraiths, if you die within a certain amount of time of them hitting you, you will spawn spawn a Forge Wraith as well. So spawn screen can be really helpful. Even if you're melee, if you have some scrolls, so when you get raised, you can cast it on yourself. That can be really helpful. Other than that, there's no curses or anything like that that I'm aware of, at least. To manage. Anything else you can think of in terms of what to bring into the raid with you?
We've been using Global of Invulnerability on the melee group lately to protect against the skull spells.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've only recently started doing that. I haven't been paying close attention to how effective that is.
Sure.
That was a tip given to us from somebody else. So, that's something you can bring as well. And it's also worth mentioning, because there's still a lot of people that don't know this, that you can benefit from multiple sources of absorption. So you can have
Right.
2 different fire absorption pieces of gear on. As long as they're not the same percentage, they will work in conjunction with each
Didn't
other.
they
They don't
fix that
stack.
a few years ago?
No, I mean, they still work in conjunction. They just, one is applied, then the next is applied.
Yeah, I know you can use like Fire Shield or Energy Sheath, and those too on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few set bonus. The new Sharn Tank set bonus has absorption. Other places you can find absorption, there is a clicky in the Shirati tree at tier 4 that you can throw on others as well. And in the new revamped Fate Singer tree, the Arcane Hymn also gives some elemental absorption, so those can be helpful as well.
And I would say, don't step in without a serious level of
Yeah.
fire absorption and, like 1,200 hit points or something.
Yeah, the other
Minimum.
thing that you have to deal with is the evil damage, and that's a lot harder to manage and absorb, and that gets me pretty frequently, even on normal, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So going back to just kind of the flow of the raid, as you, some party makeup stuff that you'll probably need. A tank is helpful, and just in kind of controlling things if it goes sideways. If everything goes well, you probably won't need a tank, but kind of depends on how you want to go. You can tank the boss a little bit. It's kind of tricky because of the positioning and everything, but we'll talk about when we talk about the boss a little bit more. You will definitely want some ranged DPS, and you will probably want some crowd control stuff. So, anything else? And a bunch of DPS.
I would add the ability to insta kill, like Forge Wraiths and Skulls. Like having turning clerics are great. Sunburst can insta kill Forge Wraiths and the Skulls. You can always use Mass Frog on some of the mobs in here. So being, especially like if you get a bunch of Forge Wraiths together, if you have a good turning cleric that can just zap them all away with a turn is great, or even a high decent DC of Sunburst can make them all go poof. But if you have to individually kill them, like you were saying, if you kill one and there's others nearby, it just upgrades the rest of them, and that just doesn't work. And it can be very challenging because it's such a chaotic raid that it can be challenging to try to get them separated.
They also move quickly and suddenly sometimes. So you
They
might
do.
kill one, and then either that one kind of moves over to another group, or some move to it, and then they get benefit of the upgrade. Implosion is a bad idea because it kills things one at a time. So
Yep.
you'll just upgrade consistently with that. So avoid that. Um,
Same with hurl through hell. You don't
yeah,
want to hurl one Forge Wraith that there's another one
yeah.
right next to
Everything is nothing. I have had since they changed it. I have found it to be very unreliable at killing them all. It seems like it kills a couple, like it kills them almost sequentially. So some always seem to upgrade.
it. I have no experience with that since they made the changes.
Yeah, so I'm very leery about using everything as nothing. If someone tests it and finds its work, let me know. But I have found that it does not do a good job of killing a group together. So as you get into the raid, there's a little area at the beginning where this talk to somebody, opens a barrier, lockout kind of mechanic stuff. You'll jump down into, and there'll be lava, kind of a lava area with some rocks. There's a path that kind of sinks into the lava and then comes back. And there's also, like right there, there's going to be a group of Forge Wraiths. There'll be a red named, a couple orange names, and just some generic Forge Wraiths. This little section right there, this is about teaching you how to deal with those mechanics. So if you're struggling to get past this point, you may wish to repeat this section a few times to kind of get people familiar with how these mechanics work. Because if you're just getting a bunch of red name Forge Wraiths here, you're only gonna have more problems when you get to the main room. Some ways to kind of handle the Forge Wraiths. Jade strikes will you can jade the Forge Wraiths, which can be really helpful. You can jade one and pull everything else away from it and kill it. You can do the same with freezing ice. The shroud items that freeze are really good for that as well. Those are kind of the only two things that really work on these things in terms of crowd control that I've noticed.
See, this is where we send in, when we drop down that first hole, we send in the turners and the sunbursters first.
Yeah.
And they, that way they just wipe everything out, and we have to deal with the one giant, and that's it. Sometimes there'll be a second giant,
Sure.
so maybe one of them saves against sunburst or whatever. But
yeah. After you defeat those, a barrier will drop. You go in a little farther, and there will be one Forge Wraith, and then there will be it's like an ogre, a couple goblins, a couple humans. My guild, we call them the Cogs, or Cogs Trash. Their mechanic is when they reach the lava, they turn into Forge Wraiths. So you don't want to let them do that. So this second little fight is also teaching you a mechanic that's going to become more important when you get into the actual raid. Because there will be more of these guys, and if they make it to the lava, they're going to turn into Forge Wraiths. That is bad. You want to limit the number of Forge
and they're
Wraiths.
wafer thin on normal, so you can just energy burst them or whatever. But if you don't kill them all right away, like you said, they're all going to turn into Forge Wraiths, and then it's going to get ugly.
Even on higher difficulties, they're not too beefy.
Okay.
Even on hard, they drop pretty fast.
And you said earlier, if you're struggling with this part, that might be a sign you're not ready for it. I'm going to go one step further. This lava is hot.
True.
And it hurts. Yep. And if you can't, and I'm not trying to be mean. I said this in my own guild raid the other day, I'm just trying to be real. Like, if you can't survive the lava in this first part, that might be an indication that your toon isn't ready for this.
Bad
for this
things
raid.
Are coming. Yeah.
Because it's if you can't if you can't survive the lava, you're not gonna have probably very good luck in the main part of the raid.
We should mention too that the Forge Wraiths also give you a debuff that makes you more vulnerable to. I think it reduces your MRR. It's something that's been common the last couple raids. Makes you more vulnerable. So if you're not managing, if you get hit a lot, then it's going to make it harder for you to kind of survive in that regards as well. We should also mention the blowtorch attack that the Forge Wraiths do. It's kind of their special attack. They do it in the normal questing areas as well, where they just kind of shoot a jet of fire out. They do that quickly. Like there's not really much of a tell that it's coming. And if you get caught in one, it can burn you pretty good. If you get caught in 3, you're toast, literally. So watch out for that as well. Once you get past those 2 fights, there's a shrine. Word of warning, this shrine is located right next to the entrance to the rest of the raid. It's really easy to click that and go through without shrining.
Why have our devs not learned? This has been a problem ever since TOD Part 2. I mean, come on. Why are you going to put the portal to the next part right next to the shrine? They did this in White Plume Mountain too.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys, quit doing that. But if you do accidentally click on that, you can always /stock to go back. But I don't know if that starts any kind of if it actually starts the next part or not.
You can step through the next part. And it doesn't activate anything until you go forward, essentially. All right. So let's talk about the main room, where things get nuts quickly. To give an idea of the layout, so you come in on an upper level, kind of in the back of the room. In the front of the room, there's this area is pretty small, and to the left and the right, there's catwalks that lead to 4 puzzles, and we'll come back to those. Directly in front of you is a control panel that we'll also come back to, and that's important. Down below is a much wider platform. The upper area kind of cantilevers over some of the lower area, and then in front of you is this pool of lava. The pool of lava is where the big boss is going to be. Now, there are several spots in this raid, mostly kind of up on the catwalks, and then kind of around the perimeter of this working area, essentially, is really where the Forge Race are going to kind of spawn from. And they do just kind of spawn, which is one of the problems I have with this raid. They spawn in bunches of 6 to 8. Something or to that effect, right? Like they come in pretty large bunches, which is actually one of the places I think if it'd be really easy to make this raid easier for people to handle is if they just reduce the number that were spawning, at least in lower difficulties, right?
And they did that once already, and they could stand to do it again.
Well, I think they reduced the time between the spawns, not actually how many are spawning, which was helpful to be sure. But so there's an area that's a really easy area there. In the back of the room, away from the lava, including where you step in, there are elevators. They're really easy to. I mean, when you port in, turn around, you'll see one right there. There's one at the top. There's 2 in the back corners and 1 underneath on the bottom level. This is where Cog's Trash will spawn from. They step through there. They take a couple steps forward, and then they dash. And when I say dash, I mean Usain Bolt sprint towards that lava to turn into Forge Rates. So if you don't, you can crowd control them really easily. You can instant kill them. None of them are orange names or anything like that. So they're fairly easy to manage if you're managing them. As people start to die, and some of them will get through, and everything will just kind of snowball. Like we've been saying, once it starts snowballing, you get into trouble. Let's see. Anything else we should mention? I think that kind of covers the layout, right?
Okay, yeah. Because you're still going to talk about the puzzles and stuff, right?
Yeah, the puzzles.
Okay.
Yeah. Should we talk about the puzzles first, the skulls first, or the boss first?
Well, the puzzles have to be done pretty, right away. So we should
right.
probably talk about the lever puzzles.
So there's the 4 puzzles I mentioned. There's 2 on each side. They have big giant numbers over them: 1, 2, 3, and 4. On the control panel will be a color code for each one. There's it's 6, I believe, right? 6 lights, and there are 4 color choices: green, blue, yellow, and red. And if some people hopefully no one from a couple people from my guild are not listening, who are adamant that is purple and not blue.
I haven't heard that one yet, so.
For the purposes of this discussion, we're going to call them green, blue, yellow, and red. There is a fifth color, which actually looks looks purple to me.
See, that one looks red to me.
The last one?
You're talking about the when it's not lit at all?
Yeah. So when you step in, when you start the puzzle, each of the 6 gems will not be lit. There is a color, a fifth color that is not used in the combination, which I see as purple.
Which you're talking about just unlit, right? When it's unlit, it looks like the dark red to me.
Well, so there's the unlit, and then if you pull it 5 times, you go to a fifth color. That's not
Really?
using. Yeah, it's not using the combination. Instead of it being unlit, it's a null color. It's a 0 color.
I never noticed that.
Yeah. Now the reason why I'm telling you the order of green, blue, yellow, and red is because that's the order. So when you pull the lever, it turns one of those gems first to green, to blue, to yellow, to red, to purple, which is the null color, back to green. And what you have to do is get the 6 gems to be the correct color combination. And then there's a 7th lever that's sideways. You pull that. When you pull that lever, there's a big gem that is red to start with, will turn green. If it stays green, you got it correctly. If it turns back to red, you did something wrong and you have to try again. So, it seems pretty simple until you find out that the levers that you're pulling to change the colors are not in order of the gems. They're all out of order. Puzzles 3 and 4 use the same lever order as each other, and puzzles 1 and 2 use the same lever order. So, for example, on puzzles 3 and 4, the first lever changes the 4th gem. And then I believe the second lever changes the 3rd gem. The third lever changes the 1st gem. Then I think it's 4, 6, 5, 2, and whatever the last color, 6, 5, or something like that. So that's where it becomes puzzly. It's not too bad. It's not too hard. As long as you're kind of paying attention to what you need, what color combination you need to get, and you pay attention to which lever, pulling which gem. Clear as mud?
What we like to do in our group, instead of trying to memorize or remember which lever pulls which or toggles which light, we just start from left and work our way. You go to the leftmost lever, pull it, see whichever one it toggles, and keep pulling that until you get the color you want on that gem. When it's the right color, then you move to the next lever. Notice which ones that's toggling. Once that one's the right color, then you move to the next lever. You just keep doing that until all the gems are the right color.
That's exactly what I do. I just happen to always get stuck on the 3, 4 levers, and I've started to I've just started to naturally memorize. It's like punching in a phone number, right? You do it 100 times, you just learn what the phone number is.
I will say that I find it helpful, and a lot of people have mentioned this, that the solutions for these puzzles, the color combinations, which you said are on the center console when you first step in out in front of you. It's kind of small, so it's helpful to zoom your camera in to make sure a lot of people will mess up these colors. When you're zoomed way out and they're real small, yellow and green look a lot alike. That's what I see people messing up, is they get yellow and green mixed up. But if you zoom in, you're less likely to make that mistake.
Some other things that I've seen, I type out the combination for the puzzles that I'm working on. Some people like to take pictures. If that works for you, whatever works for you, right? What you really want to avoid is going back and forth, right? I have considered having someone as a tactic, just have someone at the control panel and just start listing out the puzzles. The reason I don't do that is you're introducing a point of failure. You're essentially playing telephone at that point, right? So that can be helpful sometimes. Again, the thing to really remember is when you complete the color combination, you have to pull the lever on the side, the 7th lever, and that gem at the top needs to stay green. If it turns back to red, the combination is wrong. You need to fix it, which can be challenging because then you probably don't know which lever is which gem, right? So that can be kind of a challenge. You do not need to wait for the lever to finish pulling to pull it again. You can pull them in quick succession. So if you know which lever, once you know which lever is going to hit which gem, you can just, if you know it's yellow, 1, 2, 3, pull. Next, 1, 2, pull for blue, right? So you can pull them faster than the animations are happening, which can be helpful if you're trying to get through this a little bit faster. And then the last thing I will say is, if you're not a puzzler, don't stand on the control console blocking the color combinations.
Also, this is 5 Kinds of Stupid, and Mystic Dragon Rider in chat mentioned it. There's actually a stuck spot between the
Oh, really?
NPC that's right in front of the console and the console. You can get stuck between the NPC and the console. We've seen it happen like
that's
3 times,
fantastic.
and it's so irritating, but it's there.
That's fantastic. There's actually a stuck spot in the beginning area. There's a bunch of NPCs there. You can get stuck. There's like 3 of them in a triangle. You can get stuck there too.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. If you don't start the puzzle, if you don't finish the puzzles fast enough, everyone in the raid will start getting a fire dot on them. Does some fire damage, reduces your resistance to fire as well. Your timer and everything starts when the NPC you were talking about is kind of telling you what's going on. So you step in, she says, "Hello, welcome. I've got my eyes are burned. I can't see. I need you to work the controls," kind of a thing, right? Once she starts talking through that, that's when the raid is your time is essentially started, as it were, to finish the puzzles. The last thing we should say about the puzzles, each puzzle has a trap box next to it. If you disable the trap box, it automatically solves the color combination, and you can pull the lever. Now, you're probably thinking, guys, if you can just disable the trap, why don't you just disable the trap and pull it and move on with your life? It's a fantastic question, sir. You have to solve the puzzles 3 times, and you only get 1 trap box. So you can only do that once for the raid. So our normal strategy is to save that for the end, the third time that you have to do the puzzles. Because usually by that time, things are getting a little bit more chaotic. Sometimes they're marginally more chaotic. Sometimes they're, oh my gosh, how are we going to finish this chaotic? Now, having said that, the last time I ran it, in fact, we threw some new people at the puzzles, because people got to learn sometime. And there was a problem with one of the puzzles, and that dot was taken pretty good, and things were starting to get a little bit out of hand. And I went up, I pulled the trap, did the trap, pulled the lever, and we went on, because we needed to move on. And it was a quick way to get that done. So we had to solve it on the last phase as well. But so you have to do the puzzles 3 times. After you do the puzzle the first time, the boss comes. Big giant Forge Wraith Titan. Stands in the lava. Has the tiny hitbox. Tinier than Lost hitbox. Tiny. Which is actually the second point where I would really like them to adjust. It is too small. You can turn you can turn him to a side and he won't hit everybody, but still, even then, it can be really tricky to find a good spot. So if you're attacking him in melee, make sure you're getting dice rolls. Because if you're not getting dice rolls, you're not doing any damage, and that's a problem. This raid is all about getting through it faster than the raid gets out of control. That's the whole kind of generic part of the raid. Let's see. Special attacks the boss does. He does the jet flame thing, although it's really hard to see because you're literally fighting at his kneecaps. He's so big. He also shoots skulls from his hands. These skulls are homing missiles that do a normal. My monk usually takes about 12 to 1,500 points, if not more, of evil damage from one of these skulls. They are deadly.
And you can take a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I mean, thousands of damage on normal.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things, it's like, that's too much damage for a normal difficulty.
And this is the other place that I think this is where I think they most need to change this raid, is dial this damage way down. You can use deflect arrows to deflect them. It does work for that. The problem that I have with that strategy is I never seem to get hit by less than one. I always seem to get like 3 of them at the same time. I don't know if it's my luck or what. But if I get hit by 1, I know a second one's right behind it at least. So that's something that you kind of have to watch out for. You can avoid that by being closer to the boss. There are like square grading on this area, and basically if you're beyond like the second one back, you're gonna get shot. I don't know how far you can go side to side, but you got to be in pretty tight. So you have to kind of watch out for that.
And I want to emphasize this, because once we started realizing this mechanic, it really changed our game in there. That's when we started to shift to being successful, is understanding that to keep everybody, even the range tunes and casters, everybody needs to be like within the boss's melee range, not your melee range to the boss, but the boss's melee range, which is, since he's so big, he has a pretty big melee range.
You don't have to stand close enough to get hit. You can stay out of his range. I'm not super familiar with it, but there was this in our guild. We oftentimes have the healers basically kind of stand at the edge of the not get shot by the skulls range, but they're out of his damage radius.
I don't know exactly what that radius is, but everybody staying tight to the boss is an important thing.
Yeah, I think it's 2 square. Like the edge of that second square is about how far they get.
It's like you said, if you're not staying close, he starts going nuts with his ranged attacks, and the only time you want to leave that area is like if people got to go back and deal with the cogs trash.
Yeah, which is usually when I die. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll have our healers kind of stand back a little bit, and there's a couple of our healers that have they're not true tanks generally, but favored souls these days are pretty darn sturdy. And sometimes the squishier people hide behind them. So if skulls come in their direction, it hits the favored soul kind of tankier person instead of them, which kind of like a body shield wall kind of helps protect them. There's some marginal benefit from there. He does also throw. We were talking about circles earlier. He does throw those circles on the ground that do mass amounts of fire damage. Conveniently for him, they are red, and everything in this raid is red, so they can be really hard to see. So watch out for those. Again, if you're kind of in melee range, they don't tend to get you very much. The last thing he does is this massive slam attack. There is a tell for it. He raises his arms up and brings them both down together. Again, you're fighting his kneecaps, so it's really hard to see that. It goes through knockdown immunity, which is really annoying.
Yeah, I'd like to gripe about that.
I would like to gripe more about if the hitbox was like his sized, and you could actually hit him and get him more turned and really be able to tank him, so you could have a tank on one side and your melee on the other side. So you could actually reliably be out of that range. I think it would be a lot less of a problem. I understand why they want to have some mechanics that break through knockdown, for sure. I get why they want to do that. But it'd be nicer if one of the problems I have with this raid is you only have one side of the boss to work from, and he has such a small hitbox. I would love to see them either wrap the floor around him a little bit so you can get around him a little bit more, or give you more of a hitbox. You can be wider and actually still attack him. It's one of the problems I have with this raid, actually.
All right, have you guys tried putting the tank on one side and the melees on the other?
Yeah, we do that typically, actually.
And if the tank is able to hold his aggro, then he should just be knocking down the tank. But problem here is that because that knockdown effect can override knockdown immunity, if the boss will sometimes just keep doing that ability, and the tank never gets an opportunity to stand on his feet, which is horribly annoying. And most importantly, it's just not fun to tank that raid, because you're just on your back the whole time. And when you're on your back, you can't intimidate. You can't, DPS to build up hate. You can't do anything, and it's terribly irritating. It's not fun. And as a tank, that's one of the benefits that we have. Like, it's the tank's job to stay on their feet when, that's supposed to be the last tune standing. But when the tank can get knocked down constantly like that, it's just not cool.
If it was one of like 2 special attacks that he did, I don't think it would be a problem. But because of the greater kind of thing of the greater of what's going on in the raid, it becomes more of a problem to deal with and handle for sure. Let's see. So that's kind of how he works. Like I said, if they expanded the hitbox, you could get that separation a little bit better, and really kind of manage some of that stuff. During that fight, you do have skulls. We kind of mentioned them a little bit beforehand. They're kind of similar to flame skulls, but a little bit different. Conveniently, they generally appear. They'll either appear kind of on the left or the right as you're looking at the boss.
And these are different than the ranged skulls that the boss
Correct.
shoots at you.
Yeah,
Different skulls.
these are mobs. They spawn either up high on the catwalks where the puzzles are, or out in the lava, which is where your range DPS really comes in. These things are probably the biggest killer in the raid. They do, again, too much damage on normal. There's a theme here. And they shoot, and they like to hang out in the lava where you can't get to them from a melee perspective. So you really need to have some range and casters. We have, as soon as those skulls come out, we're saying, hey, there's skulls to the right, there's skulls to the left, and you range them, and sunburst works really well, but you got to get those down pretty quick. And watch out, they can end up in the ceiling somehow. I don't know, but we had it happen once. It was a little weird.
But emphasize, sunburst does insta kill them,
Yeah.
so it was really awesome against him.
And with its new shortened range, everything is nothing. Doesn't really seem to reach them very well. Oh, by the way, if you walk off the ledge into the lava, you die. Just FYI. Another problem with the small hitbox, because stuff really kind of starts stacking up. It becomes hard to see, and you end up in the lava.
People do. People walk off the edge by accident because they're trying to get to that certain spot. Yep. It's just like when you're fighting Loth, people walk off the edge and die.
Yeah. Another reason why that box needs to be raised. Also, once the boss comes up the first time, you DPS him a little bit, and then he'll start summoning cogs from those elevators. You'll get anywhere between 0 and 3 from each elevator. It seems to change per run. It's not very consistent about it. There may actually be invisible ones. We're not entirely sure. But we've had some like, all the cogs are dead. Why are we getting more wraiths?
Because they just spawn.
Yeah, I know.
Forge wraiths just spawn. They just spawn out of nowhere.
Yeah, which was kind of my final thing that I'm critical of, that I think they should change is way fewer wraiths spawning just normally, and even if you make the cogs more consistent and have to deal with that more often, I think that's a better trade-off, because that's the fun mechanic of the raid, right? Is stop the cogs, you don't get as many forge wraiths, right? So I wish they would make that change. The boss always has a dialogue, a DM text when he's summoning cogs, when cogs are coming up the elevators, so it does give you a little bit of reaction time. It can be really helpful if you can use casting and ranged, because again, if you get outside of the boss's kind of melee area, then he'll throw skulls at you, and that's usually how I die in this raid at this point, is I go kill my cogs, I turn around, and I've got 3 skulls coming at me in my face, and I'm host. Because like they really home in on you, and they're faster than you. You can crowd control the cogs. The ones upstairs are the ones that are kind of tricky, because by the time they fall down, they're already running. They run off the control panel. So that you kind of have to be ready for those to kind of jump down.
Dancing balls.
Yeah. Stuns work on them.
Tentacles works.
Yeah.
Ever's black tentacles. Yeah. Anything
you'd expect.
Earthquake can stop them. So
there's lots of options to crowd control them so they don't just run into the lava.
And they don't, like we said earlier, they don't have a lot of hit points. They're pretty easy to kill, but
Yep.
they move so fast that you literally only have seconds before they run to the lava, turn to Forge Wraiths, and now you got a bigger problem on your hands.
Yep. Let's see other things. So that's kind of the spawns that you're gonna have to deal with throughout the raid and kind of manage and control. When you beat the boss down, he goes away. All that stuff is still spawning. The cogs are still coming. The forge rays, the skulls, they're all still coming. You have to go the second time. You have when he goes away, you're kind of what we call the second phase. You have to do the 4 puzzles again. There's also 10 puzzles on. Let me rephrase that. 10 quote puzzles on the lower floor. These are the coolant tanks.
9. There's 9 of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're really simple. They have 3 levers in front of them, and you need to get them all pointed away from the coolant tanks. There's one on each side, left and right. By the way, when I say left and right, it's from the perspective of you looking at the Forge Ray Titan. Just some general directionality that we found really helpful, left and right, as you're looking at the Titan. There's one on each side, kind of off to the side. And then the rest of them are along the back wall. The lever on the left pulls itself and the lever on the right. The lever on the right pulls itself and the center one just pulls itself. You have to get them all pointing outward. There's a little gem that'll turn from red to green when it's ready to go. You can also see them on the control panel. They're listed there, so you can see which ones are done and which ones are not done. These things are buggy. You'll get that green light before the levers are all facing outwards. We've had the Titan come back several times, even though they're not done. By the way, if he comes back and they're not done, if you don't solve them, you'll get that fire dot on you. So you do still need to solve them. But they don't take too long. But you want to make sure you solve them. Have a couple people on them. If they're not killing trash and stuff, you can deal with that as well.
What we like to do is have the tank do those. And if the tank knows what they're doing, because the boss went away at this point, the tank can go do those 9 lever puzzles, and by the time everything else is done.
We usually don't have the tank do that because they might be tanking some of the forge rates that are there. So we don't usually do that. I should mention at this point that a really good tank, if your tank's got a bunch of them on him, a bunch of other race, it's really handy to have someone who can either freeze one or jade strike one. So that immobilizes it, and then the tank can move and take the rest of them with it, and you kill that one. When we run this on harder difficulties, we actually do this on the boss. He'll get the aggro we'll bring him to him. He'll get the aggro of them near the boss, and then we'll have someone go over and either freeze or jade strike one of those. And then what we do is we switch sides. So the tank will go to the other side, and the melee will go to the side of the frozen Titan, or the frozen Forge Wraith, and kill it. And then we'll go back on the Titan. Or we'll get the next one frozen and kind of go back and forth a little bit. So we do that a lot when we're running it on hard to kind of keep those numbers down as we're going. But you can do that outside of the Titan as well. That makes sense?
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't heard of anybody doing it that way.
Yeah. It's pretty effective.
But remember,
once you get the dancing going. So.
If you do get a cluster of Forge Wraiths, remember Sunburst and Turns too can just wipe them all out.
One thing we haven't talked about is if you run this on hard or higher difficulties, you can't instant kill the orange names.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've heard about that.
So that's
I haven't run it on hard though, so yeah.
We jade strike though. You can't jade strike or freeze the red names, but the orange ones you can. So we'll hit one of those ones and then switch, and that's how we kind of kill them and keep them from going to red. And then the tank tries to tank as many of the red ones as he can before he dies. Usually about 2 or 3, depending on the tank. But that's a way that you can kind of keep those under wraps. At that point, it's you beat the boss down, you solve all the puzzles, boss comes back, beat the boss down, he goes away, do the puzzles again. This is where we usually do the traps. Boss comes back, you beat him down, and you win. So it's just the same thing. It's kind of the same thing repetitively. It's not as repetitive as Bawa's hut. It's way too chaotic for you to feel like that. The only other thing I would say is, give the puzzlers covering fire. It's really hard to do a puzzle and fight 4 rages at the same time. Hard and above has a death timer, which makes it really fun. Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
Just emphasizing, like, the higher DPS that you have, the faster you're beating down the boss, the less time there is for all this, trash to spawn. The trash never stops spawning.
Yep.
So the longer it takes you to beat down the boss, the more that trash has a chance to build up and overwhelm you. And there's a cascading effect. It gets to a point you cannot, like, there's just too much to overcome. For us, it's been like, we can handle, if we get 2 red name giants, we can handle that. But once we get a third, we haven't been able to overcome that.
Yeah, we've occasionally not finished the puzzles and basically not brought the boss back and tried to kill trash. Sometimes we're able to, sometimes it just, like, hey, we killed one. And
But the
there's
boss
another
comes
one.
back no matter what.
No, you have to solve the
After
puzzles.
70,
You have to
for
solve
the
the puzzles
third
at the top.
phase, for the third phase, he comes back no matter what after 75 seconds.
I have not had that experience.
Yep.
We have not solved the puzzle on the top, and he has not come back. The coolant tank he seems to ignore, but the puzzle at the top, we have noticed that we have not observed him to come back until all 4 of those puzzles are solved.
Yeah, let it ride a little bit longer next time. He will come back.
I don't want to let it ride longer. I want to get out of there. The original title for this raid was To Die in Fire. They thought it was too on the nose.
But even though he will come back, and I just know that about the third phase. I don't know about this after the second phase. But that is still a good strategy to wait on finishing the top levers as long as you can, so that your melee group has a chance to get the trash under control.
You still will get the dots, but
it'd be really nice if trash stopped spawning in between when the boss goes back in the lava, because there's already likely to be trash. It'd be nice if that was just sort of a breather, kill everything that's there, no more spawns until the boss comes back, but it never stops spawning.
There's 3 changes I want to see to this raid that I think would make it way more manageable. 1, lessen the damage on the skull, the homing skulls that he fires in particular. 2, widen his hitbox on the boss so that you have more room to maneuver, because it's just aggravatingly not very much room. And you're like trying not to fall in the lava too. So that's a big problem. And 3 is how fast and how often the forge wraiths just generically spawn. I would rather they spawned like way less, if not at all, and the cogs trash spawned way more frequently. Because then it's actually about the mechanic of dealing with the cogs and preventing them from becoming forge wraiths, as opposed to dealing with that mechanic and here's randomness. 8 forge wraiths to deal with at the same time. Like, it's just, there's too much of that trash that can too many forge wraiths spawning too quickly. I would rather it be about the mechanic of don't let the cogs become forge wraiths, because that's the part that's fun. But yeah, in terms of me personally, like, this is my least favorite raid since Titan. Maybe Defiler of the Just.
I'm going to add one more to your list of things you'd like to see changed, and that is that I really want to see tanks who have knockdown immunity actually be immune to all knockdowns, including from bosses.
Yeah.
I really want to like this raid.
I do too, right? And that's what, like, I like the mechanics. I like the puzzle concept. It's just too much on normal. It's too much.
It is. It's too much on normal. And like I said, it's for me, the raid more than anything, even all these months later, more than anything, it's stressful.
Yeah.
And that's not fun. Yeah. We like to raid, and we want to be able to, maybe choose to do a lower difficulty for the easier completion instead of normal being like taking us to the limit. And like I said, I see no opportunity for my guild to ever host this as a teaching raid, and that bums me out.
Yeah, I agree. If you take having to deal with lag problems in raids out of the equation, this raid is the least fun of a raid I have.
Oh, if you get lag in here, forget it. You're
Yeah.
done. If you get 5 seconds of lag, you're going to get overwhelmed by trash if it comes at the wrong time.
Like Defile the Just, I found to be aggravating because of the lag. That was why it was a bad raid. Temple of Deathworm, same kind of thing. Like I don't really even mind the puzzles in Temple of Deathworm. They are kind of repetitive and long, but I don't really mind them too much. But it was really laggy. That's why I didn't like the raid as much. This one, even if you take the lag out, like we've had runs with no lag, it's still not fun. It's still aggravating and painful, and so.
I feel like what is normal now should be hard.
I think what's normal now should be elite, but
wow.
in terms of the spawn rates and stuff, I mean, hard, you could change nothing about normal to hard, and it just gets exponentially harder just by the fact that you can't instant kill orange names. So, I think the hit points of the mobs are fine. I think it's just how much damage you take. And like I said, like I think those three things that I taught you, if you take the trip, like really tone down the forge race and compensate by adding more cogs, even some, I would even be fine with some cogs that were orange name or like had more hit points, were harder to kill or something. And in Lines of Supply, there's various types of cogs that come out, cogs, the various supply runners that come out. Some are faster, some are
you
beefier.
Get the null
really
runners,
slow.
yeah.
Yeah, the null runners are really slow. The giants are really big or slow, but are sacks of hit points. Like some variation there would be fine. But getting 8 forge race to spawn, and sometimes you get like 3 orange names to spawn at a time. That's just ridiculous. You don't need that. The raid is already hard enough. Make it about the mechanics, not about how much damage can you absorb in a short amount of time. That's where it frustrates me.
And we talked a little bit before the stream. There's something else I want to say. I've been playing DDO for 10 years now, and I thought elitism was dead in this game. Like I knew there were like little clusters of it maybe, but that it didn't have the presence that it once did. But I'm telling you, when this raid came out, the elitism on the forums was really disappointing. I read some of that stuff and it just made me want to vomit. And I saw some of these power gamers just wanting so badly for them to be the only ones that could complete this, and they were happy if all they could do it was normal, as long as they were the only ones that could complete it. And it was just absolutely disgusting and really disappointing. And like I said, we've got 13 difficulties. There's no reason for normal to be as outrageous as it is. And there's lots of people who love to go on the forums and say, "Oh, it's super easy." Hey, I understand that the R10 is easy crowd is going to think this raid is really easy on normal. I get that because you guys are pumping out uber DPS. But guess what? Not everybody is. The R10 is easy crowd is a sliver of the DDO community. And I'd like to see this raid be accessible to everybody who wants to be a part of it, and I just don't feel like it is. And that's one of the goals of having a variety of difficulties is so that if people want to run content on casual or normal or whatever, and that's where they're at, they can. And they can step it up, and if they want to run the raid on R6 or R8, they can. And I just think that the bar, the needle needs to shift on this raid in terms of difficulty, because it's just not accessible for most people. I think on Sarlona there's only like 4 different groups that are completing this.
Raids that the average players can't run die faster. Period. We saw that with Abbott. We saw that with riding the storm out, and we're seeing it with this raid.
Now, Raceland in chat just said raids since Temple of the Deathworm have only been accessible to a few. Now, if you feel that way, Too Hot to Handle is so next level from even a raid like riding the storm out. Like I said, when we did riding the storm out as a teaching raid in the spring, we took 7 first timers in there. And me and 4 of my guildies, no problem. I can take my time, explain how the raid works. We get a completion, no problem. That is not at all ever going to happen, at least not for me, in Too Hot to Handle. Not even, like I said, I can't even take 2 newbies in there. I can't teach that as a teaching rate. I can't bring newbies in there. Period.
Too Hot to Handle. All it takes is one person who doesn't understand the mechanics of how the forage rates work to kill the raid.
And like, I don't even want to run the raid unless it's like all my guildies. Seriously.
Yeah.
And it's just not cool.
And I think we should. I really want to drive home this idea that like, we're not talking about this from the standpoint of people shouldn't be able to grow into the raid, right? Like when RSO came out, normal was not hard to complete for my group. Hard was not really too hard for us to complete. It was more challenging than normal, but we could do it reliably. Reaper was harder. Reaper was harder when Reaper came out and stuff, and that gave us a lot more fits. Now we can run Reaper on it no problem. That's not what we're talking about. If like as power goes up, it becomes more accessible. Like if the raid's not like even going back to RSO, right? When RSO came out, it was difficult. It was not accessible because of the amount of electric damage that people had to prepare for. This is worse than that. And even today, people don't run RSO. People still run Tempest Spine and the Ravenloft, right? Like because it's accessible. Even though that maybe to get challenged we have to run it on higher skulls. That's fine. That's why there's more difficulties. So anyways, I think we'll wrap this up and then we'll be back next week. We'll talk about Project Nemesis. So Voodu, why don't you tell people about the stuff you're working on?
Sure. So I just had my 5th year anniversary on YouTube this summer, and
Cool.
where you can find over 800 videos, quest guides, crafting tutorials, raid guides, all kinds of good stuff, fun series. And I just had my 1-year anniversary on Twitch, where you can catch me live streaming nearly every day. And we live stream all kinds. Usually we're doing like mid-skull Reaper stuff, sometimes raids and stuff like that. And both of my YouTube channel and my Twitch channel is Voodu Spice.
Yeah, and you can find that again. You can go to YouTube. It's is it Voodu Spice or Ginger Spice? I can't remember on YouTube.
Voodu Spice.
Yeah. So you can find all of his videos there. And you post them on the forums as well, a lot of times.
Yeah, I'm an official fan site, so I do post in the fan site forums sometimes.
Well, thanks, Voodu, for joining me today, and thanks to all the contributors for DDOCast, and thanks for listening to the show. Thanks to Standing Stone Games and Wizards of the Coast, and to Cyber Ears for hosting the podcast. If you'd like to support the show, you can visit our website, DDOcast.com, or you can support us on Patreon. If you have a DDO-themed webpage or you Twitch DDO and you'd like to be featured on our website, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can hit us up at ddocast.com for show notes, MP3s, our calendar, previous shows, and other fun stuff. And if you'd like to be a part of the show or have a comment on this episode, a question you'd like to hear us answer, a topic you'd like to hear us discuss, or you just want to say hi, you can leave a comment or you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media for the latest cast updates. I am at DDOcast on Twitter. So, until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chest level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to gather for buffs.